如果我现在告诉你，此刻这2个字可能根本不是一个真实存在的东西，你会不会觉得我疯了？我们每天说现在几点，现在心情怎么样，现在的自己过得好不好？此刻感觉理所当然到不需要解释，理所当然到我们从来没有怀疑过它。但物理学告诉我一件事，让我在读完这本书之后，有很长一段时间没办法好好睡觉。那件事是，此刻从来不是所有人共享的同一个真相，它比较接近一种立场，是你站在哪里，用什么速度移动，共同决定出来的东西。听起来很抽象，对不对？先别急着懂它，等一下我会用一个很具体的画面带你走过去。你只需要记得一件事，等你听完接下来这段，你会开始怀疑自己每天说出口的现在到底指的是什么。今天我要说的这本书叫做《宇宙的构造》，作者布莱恩格林。这本书从头到尾都在做同一件事，把我们最理所当然的东西，时间、空间、此刻，一层一层拆开给你看。拆到最后你会发现，里面没有一块砖是真正稳固的。而这件事，最后会逼着你回头去看，自己是怎么过日子的。布莱恩格林1963年出生在纽约，他不是那种被苦难推着写书的作者。他的命运不是集中营，也不是绝症诊断书，他的命运是一种更安静的东西，一种从5岁就开始，怎么样都停不下来的执着。他5岁的时候就能心算30位数的乘法。6年级，学校已经找不到老师教得动他，只好把他送到哥伦比亚大学去找家教。这不是励志故事常见的开场，这其实是一个小孩子发现自己的脑子跟这个世界对不上同一个频率的时刻。他后来进哈佛念物理，又拿到罗德奖学金去牛津拿博士学位。他研究的领域叫弦论，这是物理学里最野心勃勃的一支，想要回答一个问题：宇宙里所有的力，重力、电磁力，还有支配原子核的那些力，能不能用同一套规则解释？他花了将近40年在这个问题上打转，到今天都还没有一个能被完全证实的答案。我觉得他的命运不是那种一次性的戏剧性苦难，而是一种更难熬的东西，长期忍受不确定。一个人可以花40年研究一个可能终其一生都证明不了的理论，还能继续相信这件事值得做下去，这种执着本身就已经是一种命运。后来他开始写科普书，是因为他发现一件事让他很不甘心。如果没有人能懂物理学家在兴奋神魔，那些发现就只是留在少数人脑子里的美丽废墟，跟其他人一点关系都没有。他想把它翻译出来，翻译成不是物理学家的人也能听懂的语言。这本书就是他教出来的翻译结果。我要先带你走过一个思想实验，这个实验物理学家叫它安德罗美达悖论。想象有2个人，一个坐在家里沙发上，一个骑脚踏车从他面前经过。2个人的速度差距非常小，小到肉眼完全感觉不出来。按照爱因斯坦的相对论，只要2个观察者的移动速度不一样，他们对于什么时候算是同一个此刻，答案就会不一样。坐在沙发上的人，他认为的此刻的仙女座星系，跟骑脚踏车那个人认为的此刻的仙女座星系，中间可以差到好几天，甚至更长。仙女座星系离我们非常非常远，光要走很久才能到我们这里，所以我们现在看到的仙女座，其实是它很久以前的样子。而这2个人，一个坐着一个骑车，因为相对速度不同，他们计算出来此刻仙女座正在发生的事，是不一样的事件。听起来像文字游戏，但它不是。这是相对论算出来的真实结果。也就是说，此刻这个词根本不是宇宙里固定的一个时间点，它是你的移动速度算出来的一条线，这条线切过整个宇宙，而每一个用不同速度移动的人， 切出来的线都不一样。这件事在物理学里逼出一个更大的结论，叫做 block universe， 直接翻译是块状宇宙。意思是，过去、现在、未来，不是像我们感觉的那样，此刻走过去就消失了，未来还没发生，而是这三者一直都在，像一整块已经完成的宇宙，时间只是这块宇宙里的一个维度，跟长宽高一样，是一种空间性质的东西，不是一条真的在流动的河。那为什么我们会感觉时间在流动呢？这是这本书给我最震撼的第二个答案，也是我认为的第二刀，跟第一刀合起来才是完整的一刀。答案跟熵有关。熵是物理学用来描述一个系统混乱程度的量。热力学第二定律说，一个封闭系统里的熵只会增加，不会减少。冰块会融化，不会自己接回去。房间会变乱，不会自己变整齐。物理学家发现，我们感觉时间往前走的那种感觉，其实不是时间本身在动，而是熵一直在增加。我们的记忆只能记住熵比较低，也就是比较有秩序的那些状态，没办法记住未来熵更高的状态。所以我们才会觉得，好像有一个方向，叫做过去到未来，其实那个方向是熵替我们画出来的箭头，不是时间自己走出来的路。我把这两件事放在一起讲给你听，是因为它们合起来会推翻一个我们每个人一辈子都没有怀疑过的假设，也就是此刻在流动，而我站在原地。这本书告诉我的答案完全相反，此刻没有在流动，是我自己带着我的移动，我的熵，我的记忆，在替自己画出一条叫做现在的线，然后说服自己说，这就是真实。我记得读到这里的时候，我把书放下来，看着房间，突然觉得很陌生，因为我一直以为我活在一个叫做现在的地方，而现在是全世界共有的。结果原来，现在只是我自己画出来的那条线，跟你画出来的那条线，可能根本不是同一条。我认同的不是相对论本身，那些数学我没办法在这里验算给你听。我认同的是，这本书逼我看见的一件更贴近生活的事，就是每个人的此刻本来就不一样。我不是在讲科学，我是在讲我自己观察到的东西。一个人在等一通电话的此刻，跟另一个人在睡觉的此刻，物理时间也许是同一秒，但那一秒里装的东西完全不同。我以前觉得这只是心理学上的比喻，读完这本书之后，我开始觉得，也许连物理学都在告诉我们，此刻从来不是客观的，它一直都是主观的，只是我们把它误认成客观的了。但我要老实说一件事，这本书让我最不舒服的地方，也是我没办法完全买单的地方。物理学说时间不流动，过去、现在、未来一直都在，这在数学上也许成立。但我没办法只用这句话去安慰一个正在等亲人开刀结果的人，也没办法用它去安慰自己，在某一个等待很煎熬的夜晚。因为就算时间在物理学里是静止的一整块，我活着的这个身体感觉到的痛苦，感觉到的煎熬，是真实流动的。我不完全认同的地方是，这本书把此刻拆解得非常漂亮，但它没办法拆解掉我活在这个此刻里的那种真实的重量。物理学可以说时间是幻觉，但活着的感觉不是幻觉。我想到有一种很多人都有过的经验，就是等一个很重要的结果，可能是等一通电话，可能是等一个消息。那段等待的时间跟平常1小时的长度完全不一样，感觉特别慢，特别重。读完这本书之后，我开始理解，也许这不是我的错觉，而是那个当下，我的熵，我的注意力，我对这件事情投入的重量跟平常完全不同，所以我画出来的那条叫做此刻的线，本来就跟别人不一样，跟平常的我也不一样。这反而让我对自己那些说不清楚为什么特别漫长的时刻多了一点理解， 也多了一点温柔，因为原来连物理学都承认，此刻真的没有一个统一的长度。你以为时间在走，其实是你自己在动。如果此刻从来不是一个固定不变的东西，而是你自己用你的位置、你的速度、你的注意力画出来的一条线，那我想问你一个问题，你今天画出来的这条线里装的是什么？这本书让我想起另一本书，叫做《沉思录》。物理学说过去、现在、未来一直都在，此刻只是一条相对的线。沉思录用完全不同的方式回答同一个问题。他说，既然人没办法留住过去，也没办法确定未来，那就把全部的注意力收回到你唯一真正拥有的这一刻。一个从宇宙的结构出发，一个从人怎么活着出发，但他们其实在问同一个问题，人要怎么跟时间相处。这一集宇宙的构造，我们就先聊到这里。Let me tell you something that might sound insane. The word now might not actually refer to a real, shared thing. Every day we say things like, what time is it right now? How are you feeling right now? How is your life going right now? Now feels so obvious that we never stop to question it. But physics told me something that kept me up at night for a long time after I closed this book. That thing is this. Right now, the present moment, has never been a single fact shared by everyone in the universe. It is closer to a position. It depends on where you stand and how fast you are moving. That probably sounds abstract right now, so stay with me. I am going to walk you through one very specific, very strange thought experiment in a moment. All I need you to remember is this. By the time we get through it, you will start to doubt what you mean every single time you say the word now. The book we are talking about today is called The Fabric of the Cosmos, written by the physicist Brian Greene. This book spends its entire length doing one thing. It takes apart the things we are most certain about, time, space, and the present moment, piece by piece, until you realize none of them are as solid as they feel. And that realization eventually forces you to look back at how you are actually living your days. Brian Greene was born in New York City in 1963. He is not the kind of author whose life was carved open by catastrophe. His fate was not a concentration camp, and it was not a terminal diagnosis. His fate was something quieter, an obsession that started at age 5 and never really let go. By the age of 5, he could multiply 30-digit numbers in his head. By 6th grade, his school could no longer find a teacher capable of keeping up with him, so they sent him to Columbia University to find a tutor. That is not the typical opening of an inspirational story. It is the moment a child realizes his mind is running on a frequency the rest of the world simply cannot match. He went on to study physics at Harvard, then won a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford, where he earned his doctorate. His field was string theory, arguably the most ambitious branch of physics there is, an attempt to answer whether every force in the universe, gravity, electromagnetism, and the forces that hold atomic nuclei together, can all be explained by a single underlying framework. He has spent close to 4 decades circling this question, and to this day there is still no fully proven answer. I think his fate is not the kind of one-time dramatic suffering we usually associate with a great author. It is something harder to carry, a lifelong tolerance for uncertainty. A person can spend 40 years studying a theory that might never be provable in his own lifetime, and still choose, every single day, to believe the work is worth doing. That kind of persistence is its own kind of fate. Later, he began writing books for the general public, and I think it came from a very specific frustration. If no one outside the field can understand what physicists are actually excited about, then all of those discoveries just become beautiful ruins locked inside a handful of specialized minds, disconnected from everyone else. He wanted to translate it into language that people who are not physicists could actually hold in their hands. This book is the translation he delivered. I want to walk you through a thought experiment physicists call the Andromeda paradox. Picture 2 people. One is sitting on a couch at home. The other is riding a bicycle past that same house. Their speeds are barely different, so small that neither of them would ever notice it with the naked eye. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, as long as 2 observers are moving at even slightly different speeds, their answer to the question of what counts as happening right now, somewhere far away, will actually be different. The person on the couch, when he calculates what is happening right now on the Andromeda galaxy, gets one answer. The person on the bicycle, calculating the exact same question, gets a different answer, potentially separated by days, because of that tiny difference in speed. Andromeda is so far away that the light reaching us today left it long ago, so what we are seeing right now is already ancient history from Andromeda's perspective. And these two people, one sitting still, one moving just slightly, land on two different events when they calculate what right now actually means over there. This sounds like a game of semantics, but it is not. It is a real, calculable result of relativity. It means the word now is not a fixed point that the entire universe agrees on. It is a line, cut through spacetime, determined by your own velocity. And every person moving at a different speed cuts that line through the universe in a slightly different place. This leads physics to an even larger conclusion, something called the block universe. The idea is this. Past, present, and future are not the way we feel them to be, with the present slipping away the instant it happens and the future not yet existing. Instead, all three of them already exist, together, as one completed block. Time, in this view, is simply another dimension of that block, alongside length, width, and height, a property of structure rather than a river that is actually flowing. So why do we feel time flowing at all? This is the second answer this book gave me, and honestly the second half of the same cut. It has to do with something called entropy. Entropy is the physicist's measure of disorder in a system. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that in a closed system, entropy only increases, it never decreases on its own. Ice melts, it does not spontaneously refreeze. A room drifts toward mess, it does not spontaneously tidy itself. Physicists have found that our felt sense of time moving forward is not actually time itself in motion. It is entropy increasing. Our memories are only capable of recording states of lower entropy, states that were more ordered, and we have no ability to remember future states of higher entropy. So we experience something that feels like a direction, from past toward future, but that direction was drawn for us by entropy. It was never drawn by time walking anywhere on its own. I am putting these two things together for you because, combined, they overturn an assumption none of us have ever really questioned in our entire lives, the assumption that the present moment is flowing forward while I stand still inside it. This book gives me the opposite answer. The present is not flowing. It is me, carrying my own motion, my own entropy, my own memory, who is drawing a line and calling it now, then convincing myself that line is objective truth. I remember putting the book down after reading this section and looking around my room, and everything suddenly felt strange. I had always assumed I lived inside something called the present, and that the present was something everyone shared equally. It turns out the present is just a line I draw for myself, and the line you draw might not be the same line at all. What I agree with is not the mathematics of relativity itself, I cannot verify those equations for you here. What I agree with is something this book forced me to see much closer to home, that everyone's present moment has always been different, even without any physics involved. I am not talking about science right now, I am talking about something I have simply observed. The present moment of a person waiting for a phone call and the present moment of a person asleep might technically be the same second on a clock, but what is packed inside that second is completely different. I used to think that was only a psychological metaphor. After reading this book, I started to believe that maybe even physics is telling us the present has never been objective. We simply mistook it for objective all along. But I want to be honest about the part of this book that unsettled me the most, the part one cannot fully sign off on. Physics says time does not flow, that past, present, and future all exist together, and mathematically that may hold. But I cannot use that sentence alone to comfort someone who is waiting on news about a loved one in surgery, and I cannot use it to comfort myself during one of those long, difficult nights of waiting. Because even if time, as a block, is mathematically still, the body I am living inside, the pain it feels, the strain it carries, is genuinely moving. The part one cannot fully accept is that this book dismantles the present so elegantly, and yet it cannot dismantle the real weight of living inside that present. Physics can call time an illusion. The feeling of being alive inside it is not an illusion. I think of an experience many people have had, waiting for something important, a phone call, a piece of news. That stretch of waiting time feels nothing like an ordinary hour. It feels slower, heavier. After reading this book, I started to understand that this might not be a distortion on my part at all. Maybe in that moment, my own entropy, my attention, the weight I was putting into that situation, was genuinely different from an ordinary moment, so the line I was drawing and calling now was simply different from someone else's, and different from my own on an ordinary day. Strangely, that gave me more understanding, and more gentleness, toward those unexplainably long stretches of my own life, because it turns out even physics admits the present has never had a single, uniform length for everyone. You thought time was moving. It is actually you who is moving through it. If the present has never been a fixed thing, but instead a line you draw yourself, using your position, your speed, your attention, then I want to ask you one question. What is inside the line you are drawing today? This book reminds me of another book, called Meditations. Physics tells us that past, present, and future all exist together, and that the present is only a relative line. Meditations answers a very similar question in a completely different way. It says that since we cannot hold on to the past, and cannot be certain of the future, we should bring our full attention back to the one thing we actually possess, this moment. One book starts from the structure of the universe. The other starts from how a person should live. But underneath, they are asking the same question: how should a person live alongside time? That is our episode on the fabric of the cosmos. Thank you for spending this moment with me.